Hello and good day. My name is Dee DeShawn and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of the Ann Arbor area, which serves all of Washtenaw County. I'll be your moderator today for our monthly Lunch and Learn session. This will be a different kind of lunch and learn because I'll be doing and interviewing a panelist who I will introduce in a little bit later. And Kay, could I ask you to turn off your video, stop video? Thank you. And Mary Jo, could I ask you to stop video? Thank you. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan civic organization that encourages informed and active participation by all citizens. The League works to increase understanding of major public policy issues and seeks to strengthen and broaden our knowledge about form of government and democracy. While the League does not support candidates or parties, we do take stands on issues we have studied. One of the League's most important goals is to assist voters in making informed choices at the polls. What I do want you to know right now is that we are streaming this presentation live on Facebook and we are also recording it. So we have a request. First of all, you have all been muted, but we would ask you to stop video at the bottom of your screen on Zoom. There's a little camera, and if you click on it, it will say stop video. That just helps us in the filming so that people are only seeing the people who are on the panel. At the end of this program, we actually are going to have a time when, after the program is over, when you can speak to any of the panelists, but we'll tell you when that is later. For now, just keep yourself muted. Thank you. If you have any questions or comments for our panel, would you please just type them in chat? If you do it in capital letters, that helps our tech who is following the chat questions. And we will make sure that we cover all of those chat questions at the end of the regular presentation. Let me introduce our panel today. We have several members. One is Doris Lemcke. Doris, if you would, yes, raise your hand, nod your head, very nice. Doris Lemcke, who is the author of the book, We Would Not Be Denied, which is the topic of our conversation today. Nancy Shuey, who is past president of the local chapter. Betty Bishop, who is a longtime member of the League and is a current treasurer of the local chapter's board. Harvey Summers is past secretary of the board and has been a member for a number of years. And Susie Morris, League member and daughter of Sonny Morris, who was a longtime member and a driving force in the local League. Sonny also gave the title of the book, We Would Not Be Denied. So let's start out. Nancy, let's start with you, if you can unmute. The idea for this book came out of Votes for Women 100, which celebrated the passage of the 19th Amendment. So tell us about a bit about the project and what your thoughts were about having something that was actually written.
Yes, well, just to back up just a little bit, as a departing president, I was asked to oversee the celebration of the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. And in doing so, we realized this is not just the League's matter to celebrate. This is the entire community, the entire country. So we decided to pull together a whole range of community resources, libraries, museums, women's groups, arts organizations, and we formed a Votes for Women consortium. I'm going to stand up. I'm not shy. That's our logo and for the Votes for Women 100. So that, while across the community there were lectures and exhibits, our own league, the League of Women Voters of the Ann Arbor area, had a huge exhibit called Liberty Awakes. We were planning concerts, we were planning parades, we had lectures, and we needed a book, a history of our local league. And we had this wonderful new member in Doris Lemcke. Doris gave a talk at a lunch and learn about the historical fiction that she has published. And I thought, aha, she can write, it will be engaging. And she also said that she loved doing research. So we met in May of 2019 and discussed the project, and she seemed eager to do it. A little nervous, she was new, didn't know all the people, but I hooked her up with some league members, including, very importantly, Susie Morris, who was our oldest member at that point, and the Ann Arbor District Library, so she could research the Ann Arbor News, Archives, Bentley Library, Clements Library, all of those, and set her on her way.
Okay, that's perfect. That's a perfect intro.
Excellent. Go on, keep going.
Well, we'll be back to you for sure. Okay, so thank you for muting, and then we'll have Doris unmute. And Doris, so as Nancy mentioned, you are a published author. You have a number of books that you've written, historical fiction. So, so tell us a little bit about when you got the assignment, the challenges you faced, and just a little bit about writing the book.
Well, when I spoke with Nancy, she had an older 1974 version of the history, and you know, it was light, but it had some information in it. And yes, I love historical research. You can't write even historical fiction without knowing the world. So my concern, yes, was that I was a new person, and you know, other than that, I didn't know who to talk to or whatever. So she did give me some names, and that was terrific. And Joan and I began our journey after that into the Bentley Library, and that's where I was really, it opened up to me how many fingers and how many pots this group had going. It was just amazing.
Right, and Doris, who was Joan? You mentioned Joan.
Joan Sampieri, the current president. And so we did that. So I did some research. I went to the league, the Michigan League convention with a number of you people, and that too was eye-opening to me. And I realized then that I can't just write a history of this league, the Ann Arbor Area League of Women Voters. I need to connect that to the state league and to the national league because they work as partners. And I was amazed how they all work together. And also one of the speakers there was Diane Rockall from the state league. And in the 90s, 70s, she wrote her own history of, it was a master thesis of the history of the state league. So now I had some research on our local league, our state league, and of course, you know, the national league is very, you know, prolific. But I didn't have the story, and that's what was important to me. Joan had given me, early on in my tenure, had given me the Woman's Hour to read, and that just blew me away. I was at the last chapter, and they were in Tennessee. They were going to get the vote or not, and I couldn't read anymore. I had to go to bed. I went to bed, and I told my husband, they're not going to get it. It's stacked against them. They're just not going to get it. And of course, I knew we did. But the drama in that really nonfiction book was just amazing. So I knew I had to talk to people. And Nancy had given me a number of names, beginning with Susie Morris, or Susie Morris. And she lived not far from me. And Susie and her mother were both willing to meet with me. And I'd like to share some things about my meeting with Susie Morris, because I will never forget her. She was amazing.
And so Doris, we're going to come. I'm good. We're going to come back to a little bit more about Susie. Anything else that that came to you that affected you about knowing so much, well, over a few months, knowing so much about the League?
Well, it was just a history lesson that, you know, I had just had no idea. And I really began to really value what you guys do. And as I went through the interviews, I found some common elements from everyone, certainly your commitment, the level of cooperation that you do with each other, and the dedication. Looking through those boxes at the Bentley, fortunately, the folders were in alphabetical order, and they just went on and on. And this is, you know, something that's been going on for 100 years, this level of cooperation in communities and for the many, many causes. So I was really, really impressed and you know, shocked. I'm shocked at my own ignorance. I'm a little embarrassed, embarrassed by not knowing more things earlier on in my life.
So I can tell that you're a new member because you're talking about they instead of we. So I'm imagine that pronoun will change pretty quickly, since you definitely are a part of our League.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, yes, okay. So if you'll mute, and if I could ask our participants to make sure that you have done stop video, because that helps everyone be able to just see the people on the panel. So it's just a reminder. Okay, I think I want to start with the rest of our panel. Betty Bishop Betty, you've been a member for more than 40 years. Probably of this group, Doris has been a member the shortest time. So Betty, would you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in the League?
Certainly. I grew up, actually, my mother, Mary Bishop, was a member of the Ann Arbor League. At that point, it was just called the Ann Arbor League, not the Ann Arbor area serving Washtenaw County. It was a much smaller group. This was in the 50s and early 60s. I remember coming home from school, and there would be a group of women sitting around in our living room discussing some topic to do with natural resources or government services or voter education and registration. So when I took my first professional job in Minnesota in the mid-1970s, I wanted to get to know people in the small community where I was living and working, and I joined the League of Women Voters there in Minnesota. 6 years later, I moved to East Lansing to work and joined the League there. In 1991, I returned to live in Ann Arbor and became active in the Ann Arbor League, becoming the Ed Fund treasurer and a board member a couple of years later. And I've continued to be very involved, and the last 3 years have served as treasurer.
Right. I'm wondering I know that you have been involved, Betty, in several different important projects. What would you say was the one that you were most passionate about?
I think probably I'm going to have to say there are two. One was what happened with the library lot next to the downtown Ann Arbor District Library some years ago, when there was considerable discussion in the whole community as to what was to be done with this piece of land, eventually ending up in a vote by the citizens of Ann Arbor that it was to become a public park with some other kind of building on it, but not a hotel. Mm-hmm. The other project was the Redistricting project, which we are now seeing the outcome of in the Citizens Redistricting Commission, which has just started work.
So you've been involved in projects that have gone over some period of time, and the good news is that you're able to see the fruition of one of those projects that's happening with that commission.
Correct.
Right. Thank you. Let's go next to Harvey. Harvey, you're one of the more recent members of the league. It's been a number of years, but fairly recent. Tell us about how you got involved, why you got involved, and why you stay involved in this league.
We retired to Ann Arbor, my wife and I, in 2009. We're very busy, but a few years later went to a league gathering at the downtown library. I forget what was being discussed, but I remembered how important the league had been when I was growing up in the Cleveland Heights, Ohio area, providing information, getting people out to vote. The presentation back in 2014 was great. We signed right up. Since then, I spent a year as a secretary of the board. I really enjoyed the people in terms of their enthusiasm, the passion. Nancy Shuey as president at that time, involving the community in these really important issues of understanding issues, getting people out to vote, signing people up. It was an amazing year. I was happy to have had that opportunity. And since then, I've enjoyed coming to the league events, meeting friends, meeting new people. But the core issue is getting people to vote, educating people so that they are informed voters. And every year we say this is the most important election ever, and it continues to be true. The league continues to do great work.
Yes, and I can remember as we talked the other day that that you especially like the nonpartisan, the sort of that way of not moving one way or the other, but being an advocate for knowledge and understanding the issues.
I'd like to think of the league as being in the center. As we become increasingly polarized as a country, somebody has to hold the middle ground. Somebody has to be objective, try and understand issues based on just intensive work. In 2016, the year I was secretary, the league did a policy study, and I had never known how the league did its studies, but members were given materials sent out by the National League on money and politics. And we read through materials on democratic values and political financing, series of issues. And then league members got together in what's called a consensus meeting. And we discussed these issues. We answered questions sent out by the National League. Our responses were put together and sent back to the National League. So our voices from a church in Ann Arbor went back to be part of the results of that study for the league's position on money and politics for that year. It was fascinating to be part of that.
Thank you. Yes, it's something that not everyone knows about the league, is that there is an advocacy arm, and then there is the educational arm, which is about what we're basically doing today, is education about the league. We're not advocating any positions at this point. Okay. Looks like we lost Susie there, but we'll come back to her. Doris, before we talk with Susie Morris, will you talk about your time with Sunny Morris, who did pass away last October at the age of 103? And could you just tell us about your experience talking with Susie and interviewing her? Because obviously, from what you said before, it made a big impact on you.
It certainly did. She welcomed me into her room, and I sat right in front of her, and she was just, again, so welcoming. Her eyes were so bright, and she was just ready to talk about the League of Women Voters. And I asked her how she had, kind of begun, and it was a neighbor who recruited her. They had a little tease, and she had said, I guess she thought of me as a cookie worth baking. And she said, I don't know why she spent so much time with me, but she just thought I was interested. And they had a little discussion about some foreign policy. And you can tell me if I have anything wrong there, but, and she said once she started hearing about the depth and the breadth of the league, she said, what they were interested, I was interested, and I would do anything. And so it's interesting how she gave us the title right away, fairly early on in the interview. And I asked her, well, tell me about a little bit about what you did. And she recalled at one point, she was going around Ann Arbor, and it was in the evening, downtown Ann Arbor, visiting homes, getting, I think they were signatures. And of course, there were the upstairs apartments and the commercial buildings and so on. And so she would go up the winding stairs, and she went up one, and there was a gate or something over it across. So she climbed over the gate. And, you know, she said she stood there, and there was the gate, and she leaned toward me and she said, but you know, we would not be denied. And I climbed over the gate, and the person was surprised that they were there. And she got her petition signed. and I just, as soon as she said we would not be denied, I knew that had to be the title. It was just, and our entire conversation, I don't know if I was there 1 hour or 2 hours, but I still remember so much about it. She was just such a generous, giving person, and so committed to the league.
Right. So that made an impact on you as far as, and it sounds like it even helped you get into a story about, so that, because that's what you write about. I mean, you have stories about historical events. So it did make that, she did make that impact on you.
Right, because I was in a little bit of fact overload. I could go to the websites and see all the laws and all those types of things. And I looked through 3 or 4 boxes of the folders of archives, impressed by that, you know, handwritten notes and, you know, the little onion skin paper from the typewriters we had back in the 60s and so on. I had facts that I knew I could research further and, you know, get more information. But again, as I said, I needed the story. And she gave me exactly what I needed for the beginning of that story.
Great, thank you. I'd like to go to Susie Morris now. Susie, daughter of Sonny Morris, who again did give the title of the book to Doris. And I just want to remind people, if you will turn off your videos, that will help us in our recording. Also, I want to remind people on the panel, if you have something that when you hear something, it reminds you of a story or something you wanted to make sure to share, just raise your hand, and then I will give you the signal saying, I see you, and then we'll come back to you, because we do want to have some more conversation. Okay, so Susie, you've been a league member yourself for years. Tell us a little bit about that, how you got involved in that. And then perhaps what it was like growing up with a mother who would climb over any obstacle to get a signature on a petition.
Well, I think what I'd like to say first relates to what Doris was just saying, if that's okay. But I think the way my mom got involved with the league is a good example of the strengths of the league. And, you know, first of all, she had a dear friend who was saying to her, as soon as your kids get in school, I think you should join the league. And so as soon as we got in school, this friend sat her down, as been described, and she became very impressed. And then, and this is really important about the league also, her strengths were recognized and encouraged. And she went right into taking some important responsibilities on. And she talked about the confidence that she got. And she was a person who wanted to learn more about things and be active, and the league just sensed that, as we said, a cookie that was a good cookie to bake. I think those show that the league really is a very good organization for taking people and helping them grow. So my own involvement was basically just because my mom was involved, and because I respected the league from all the things I knew and had experienced over my life. So I have not been the active member that she was, and but we do have on our program today. My cousin Lori is here, and she's the one in our family that took my mom's commitment to the league and really invigorated a league in Erie, Pennsylvania, and is very active. So she meant so much to my mom that someone took over, took her on. But growing up, we had many dinner conversations around our dinners around issues. And my brother and I will admit, were a little frustrated with the league's not taking political positions. And so we let her know that. But both of us are active. I've been a lifetime activist, and my brother's active, especially around elections. And we took on the commitment that she had to making her community better. And so even though as teenagers, I think we gave her a little grief on it, but and the exciting thing for me is that our paths crossed many times, her activism and mine, on peace vigils, and now the league's interested in issues of racial justice and racial implications on league history, and I am going to be active in that. So I feel like we've kind of come back around. I've come back around.
So it was, so the fact that you are an advocate for so many causes yourself, not within the league, but outside of the league, that certainly is due to, I would say, your mom's influence about getting involved, taking a stand, making sure that that other people feel your passion for what's important to you. It sounds like that all came together.
And also the whole education thing that we've already mentioned, that you take a stand, but it's a thoughtful stand that you've researched.
Right. Doris, thank you, Susie. We'll come back to you. Doris, you wanted to add something there?
I had to add something because when you mentioned, how involved she became. Remember when I asked her, well, what do you think your biggest contribution was? And she told a story, and it's in the foreword in the book, so I'm not going to repeat that. But she just said, I just was very good at helping people be generous. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah.
And that stuck with me. Just her presence encouraged people.
Well, I'm not sure where Sunny got her nickname, but I'm guessing she was a sunny presence in many ways. I'm sorry I didn't get to meet her too. The league is full of so many stories of people who have really given their all. Susie, you did have one more story that you told me about when you and your brother were young, and your mother was working on the Constitutional Convention from 1961 to 1963 was when Michigan had a constitutional convention, because the Constitution at that time was so old. So tell us a little bit about your mother's involvement in that.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably one of the two major projects that she did that meant a whole lot to her. You're thinking of the clown story, or there's several stories involved with that.
Go for it. Whatever you'd like to tell.
I mean, just briefly, we did go with her when she did some of her work on that, and there's a picture, I think it's probably in the book, of us, my brother and I, helping her set up a display about the convention in a local bank. But the other thing she did was, as part of the convention projects and a fundraising aspect of it, she and a friend dressed up as clowns, and I think that picture's probably in there also. And she was downtown in this outfit, and she really felt she was unrecognizable in this outfit. And one of her old friends walked in and said, just right away, Sonny, what are you doing dressed up like that? You know, and she thought, oh, my whole incognito is down the drain here. But she did a lot of different things as part of that. Her other major thing that she always mentioned when people ask what she cared a lot about was of her projects was registering high school seniors who were old enough to vote. She'd go to the classes, and she always brought that up. That was just so important to her to get these new voters.
Right, and we do have a member, Roddy Wares, who has really took it upon herself before all of the pandemic, especially, to register voters. Would any of you on the panel like to just tell a little bit about her project? Nancy? Nancy?
Yes, Roddy. Roddy is full of energy and loves the high school kids. And in 2018, she registered 1,200 students in Washtenaw County. Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti, Chelsea, across the entire county, she had a cadre of helpers, and they would go to the high schools, get the local clerk to verify the students' driver's license and stamp the final acceptance and approval, so that the kids were registered then and there. And it was an amazing accomplishment. And she and her team have continued to do that. I don't know where they are with numbers now, but it's quite high, close to 1,000.
Right. Yes, I can remember being in on one of her trainings, and she talked about Turbo Vote, which you can get as an app on your phone. And just the other day, I got a text from Turbo Vote that said, we've checked our records and we think that you might not be registered to vote. I let them know that I was indeed registered to vote, and I did have a plan for turning in my absentee ballot this week. So, but it's a really good app for any of you who have younger people in your family, because there'll be things like what's your plan for voting, what friends are you going to go with, or what friends are you going to tell about this. So there are lots of really wonderful things that people have been involved in our league to really cut across all the age groups. Betty, I wanted to ask you something about, tell us about your professional life before you retired, and how that impacted the things that you were interested in as a league member.
Well, excuse me, I spent 37 years working as a clinical psychologist, first in the Community Mental Health Center in Minnesota, and then in a large group practice in East Lansing, and then for the last 23 years, running Arbor Psychological Consultants, which was my own private practice with one other psychologist here in Ann Arbor. What I saw through my work was the difficulties many people had accessing health care. And one of the things I became involved in fairly soon after I got back into the Ann Arbor League in the early 90s was working for what became eventually the Affordable Health Care Act, the need to have health care available to everyone, and for this to include behavioral or mental health care as well as medical care.
So that was your passion, was based on what you had spent your whole adult life, your career on.
correct.
Mhm.
And the number of people I saw who had difficulty accessing healthcare, particularly mental health care, which at that point was harder to access than medical care. There have been some changes in laws since then, which have helped considerably.
Right. Thank you. And Harvey, tell us about your career before you retired a few years ago, and how that's impacted your membership and your participation in the league.
Well, John Kennedy's looking over my shoulder. He got me into the Peace Corps, which led to a career in the Foreign Service. So I was very privileged to represent the United States in a number of other countries, most of the career in Asia. And I wish that there was more international news and time for people to pay attention to what's going on in the broader world. But when I came back to the United States and retired, I realized, and moved to a new community, I realized how little I knew about American politics at the local level, American communities, and really the League was one of several organizations I joined that gave me insight into my new community. And even after 11 years here now, boy, there's still areas of Ann Arbor and the people that I don't fully understand and appreciate. I understand that there's a great just conglomeration of really educated and passionate people, and just trying to figure out what everyone is doing is very time consuming, and I love doing that. The League has brought together on this hugely, as I say, central area, the voter education, and I just want to give kudos to the people who run 411, Vote 411, which is just critical for understanding our candidates at all levels. We all know who's running for president, I hope, but I was looking up library board members. Do we know those? And also, the League does such a wonderful job on televised voter fora for candidates for local office. This educational area is just hugely important, and I applaud everybody who's doing it and keeping it going.
Yes, it takes a good many people to get that rolling. Tell us a little bit about how you use the vote411.org, and then I'll tell a little bit about the candidate forums.
It's easy to get lost at the upper levels is always true. Everybody who's encouraging voters reminds voters to look at the back of the ballot, to look at the nonpartisan races, because we know hopefully who's running for senator and the House, but they're justices, they're judges that are going to be coming into office that are going to affect our lives and the lives of the community. And we need to know more about them. Vote 411 gives opportunities for candidates to provide information. Voters who take the time to read their information get a better idea of who they are. And this is where you get into informed voting, which is hugely important.
Right. Thank you. Yes, as a matter of fact, we have Vote 411 yard signs, which we are suggesting that people put around. And we have a number of those signs along, I've noticed Zeeb Road and Jackson Road here on the western part of Ann Arbor and Scioto Township. They remind me of the old Burma shave signs, except they all say the same thing. But the point is, maybe somebody will notice one of them. And it is really important. I know I can remember when I used to, in the old days, vote in person, and I would turn the ballot over and go, oops, I don't think I knew about that, which actually is one of the benefits of having the absentee ballot. As Nancy, as you used to say to me, I really like it because I can sit with a cup of coffee and I can, really think about this and decide who I want to vote for. So it is one of the benefits of absentee ballots and absentee voting. I wanted to also check out, let's see, there's some, forget if it was poster contest. Oh, I know, the candidate forums. Our own Donna Crutter, who is on the board, our local board, and is in charge of programs, has spent day, night, 24/7 for quite a long time, getting so many candidates on our candidate forums. Those forums are available, and I think they've already started being posted on our website. The forums actually started this last Monday, and I've been pleased to be part of it, just as a timekeeper holding up a sign for 30 seconds and stop. But I'll tell you, in the primaries especially, looking at those candidate forums for me and being involved, it helped me decide who to vote for in several different areas, because the Vote 411 is nice. It's written, it tells you for your zip code, what are the issues and so on. But also listening to the candidates makes a tremendous difference. There's something about the passion that I felt from people, the commitment, the energy that they had that really did make a difference. So I would really recommend those. Okay, so just thinking about, I know, Nancy, I wanted you to tell us a little bit about your tenure as president of the local league. I know it was 7 years and just ended just a couple of years ago. But if you could unmute and just then tell us about perhaps the growth or the something important, especially important, that happened during your 7 years as president of the local league.
Well, I sort of call it an explosion is what happened when our membership literally exploded. The league, and I'll bring a little bit of Hathaway's Hideaway into this discussion. The league held meetings at Hathaway's Hideaway, which is on First Street, right next to the Fleetwood Diner. If anyone knows Ann Arbor, old Ann Arbor, it was free to us. John and Mary Hathaway were league members. They let us use it. It had been adequate for years, since the 60s, 70s, 80s. We had our 90th anniversary there. Well, in the 2016 election happened. And in February of 2017, people were like beating down our doors saying, what is the league going to do about redistricting? Look at what is happening in our state, where we have the majority of votes, but the minority of seats in our legislature. What is this deal with the Electoral College, where people win the popular vote but lose the election? And what are we going to do? So we set up a meeting at good old Hathaway's Hideaway. And we had said it was for members only, thinking we would have Sue Smith, past president before me, member of the state board and on national committees. She's like our anchor, that she could tell our members what was happening behind the scenes. But not wanting to be exclusive, we said, if you want to join the league and attend the meeting, you're welcome to. Well, that night we had hundreds of people who wanted to come in Hathaway's Hideaway. We had a line, probably 40 people long, wanting to join the league. I finally closed the door because both exits were on one side of the building, and I thought, oh my God, if there's a fire, we'll all die. There was full first floor, full second floor where we had the sound piped up. And Sue did just a great job. People were so interested. And the membership of our league in that spring went from about 75 members to 420 members. And we really had to scramble to figure out how to engage 420 members. So I lost many nights of sleep trying to work this out. But it's so exciting because that's why we're where we are today.
Right, and I can remember Nancy, because you were the person who decided to start something called Lunch and Learn.
Mhm.
And from that came Brews and Views, because there were people who couldn't meet on a weekday at noon. And I can remember, tell a little bit about starting that, how that happened.
Well, it was part of this whole thing of all of these people wanted to take some action, wanted to learn about things. So we said, well, let's have a monthly lunch and learn, pick different topics, have speakers come in. And it was held at the senior place where I live. And it's, at first I started running it, and then bless their hearts, Dee and Joan Zampiri took that over and have made it into what it is today. And so, yeah, it was originally just like, okay, let's do this. And then it's grown into this really deep and thoughtful program.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Nancy.
Sure.
And I will say the way I got involved in the league was I was very interested in the gerrymandering. And so I went to a presentation. I forget how I found out about the Lunch and Learn at the Cedars of Dexter in their lovely clubhouse. And so, and we sat at tables of 4. We actually had a little lunch. What I was most impressed by was not only the program on Voters Not Politicians, the gerrymandering, and how to have that work in a more comprehensive, fair way. And what I was most impressed by were the women who were at my table, and the depth and breadth of their knowledge and their experience. And then the questions that followed the presentation were just so thoughtful, and just, I was so amazed. And it's like, I found my people. It really felt like that. And then Nancy, bless your heart, Nancy's really good at hooking people up with things. And am I right, Doris? Talking people into things that she said, hey, Dee, wouldn't you like to do this? I have somebody who I think, wouldn't you like to help with the Lunch and Learn? Help with the Lunch and Learn. Okay. And oh, by the way, here's someone who will help out by taking the money from people when they pay for their lunch and so on. And so that's, the rest is history. With Joan and I became very good friends. Joan became the president of the local chapter. So Nancy, you've had a huge impact on the league, and you've just done such a great job. Betty, I know you wanted to get in a little while ago. Was that when we were talking about Hathaway's Hideaway and the increase in the membership?
Yes, and I wanted to add a couple of other points to that. I saw the increase in membership very quickly because as treasurer, I was processing all of these people who were joining. That was when we also got involved with PayPal as a second way for people to join and both become members and make donations. We also had a large group of members, mostly new members, who were involved with the League booth at the Ann Arbor Art Fair in the summer of 2018, and who would have been involved with the art fair in 2020 if it had not been for the pandemic. I also recalled one thing I had not mentioned earlier. My mother was part of what was the Observer Corps, which is something the League is hoping to get going again, and she observed the Huron River Watershed Council meetings for about 15 years. And this meant going to the meetings once a month and then reporting back to the League on any major changes or developments a particular board or commission took up and made in the way of decisions.
Right. Thanks for adding that. I know, Harvey, you had something you wanted to say, and Susie, I saw you nodding. Did you want to say something about the Observer Corps?
Yes, I did. One of the early things my mom did was observing the juvenile court. And she, the kind of person she was, she started taking classes in juvenile law and juvenile court law, and because of her assignment of observing the court. And then she volunteered at Maxie Boyce Training School. And then she continued to take classes in women law around women's issues. And finally, sitting in on classes with Catherine McKinnon at the University of Michigan Law School. So that part of the league really spirited her on to more and more education, and that's the kind of person she was, that she just kept going with it. But it was the league that started that whole process.
Thank you. It seems like we can all be energized by the thought of actually being, perhaps not till 103, but through our lives, and especially those of us who are retired, a place to really put our passion and energy and put our education and our hopefully some wisdom towards the things that are important to us. And Harvey, you wanted to get in at some point? Excuse me, hang on a second. Susie, you had something else?
I'm just going to say that she did continue till she was 103 doing these things. She was at Chelsea Retirement Center, and she was chair of a committee on political and ecological issues. She was making sure that Mona Waltz got us the voter guides at CRC, setting up candidate nights. So as she put it, she was working on her second 100 years, and she was continuing in those years of her second 100.
Great, thank you. Harvey, you wanted in. Thank you for being patient.
Oh, I'm fascinated to hear about Sunny's just dedication to the league. And I want to just praise the Lunch and Learn's county treasurer, Catherine McCleary. I don't think any of us know how much money is going to run Washtenaw County, but I want to go back to somebody that Nancy mentioned. I think we were all just astounded, elated that Michigan voters passed the constitutional amendment to set up a redistricting commission in the 2018 election. But one of the things I valued the league for, Sue Smith, who was then vice president of the state league, did a tour across the state and held, I think, more than 30 public meetings in communities to talk about gerrymandering and educating the public. And that was, I think, 2016 into early 2017. And that effort in 30 plus communities across the state put seeds of education and knowledge for voters. I think that helped that 2018 constitutional amendment get passed. And that's one of the reasons I value the league. Working hard, studying issues, educating voters, constitutional amendment as a result. And I can only say, wow.
Right, and when you mentioned planting seeds, Harvey, some of the things that the league plants are actually bulbs. They take longer to germinate and to come to fruition. But we seem to be a pretty patient group that doesn't give up too easily. Before we go to any other questions that have come up, I've seen a couple of other questions that have come up on chat, and I'll check with Betsy in a minute. How about if each of you has some sort of closing statement, something about your experience, something about the book, something about maybe something personal about the impact of the league on your life. I'll let you, as we do the candidates and the candidate forums, have a closing statement. And why don't we start with you, Susie, and then we'll just travel around the panel here.
Well, I think I want to read a statement that she made, which is, I feel very pertinent for the moment, and it reflects. She was asking about her experience in the league, and what advice she would give. She said, remember that through effort and dedication, an individual can affect politicians and issues. It takes time and commitment to weather the storms, both in life and in an organization. Be informed and pick what turns you on the most, because you get more out of it when you're part of getting things done.
And that's from Susie Morris. Thank you so much. And Doris, would you like to go next, since we're talking about Susie and about the whole "We Would Not Be Denied" book?
Well, I have every writing experience, and every time I talk to anyone, it's always an educational opportunity. And it was so good to talk to her first, because she really got me jazzed up that, whoa, this is full of drama. This is good stuff. I can put that in. And between this experience and going to the Constitution, or to the convention, and continuing to come and catch up on my education, so to speak, with the League of Women Voters, I have changed a great deal. I was finishing a book when I went to the convention, and it was set during the Spanish-American War, and I included the League of Women Voters in the end of my book. I thought, no, this has got to go on to something else. We have got to do this. But the incredible sacrifice and stamina of the people throughout a century, that millions of women can work together that well, William, and now men. It's really a fabulous organization. It was my honor to write that book. It really was.
Thank you so much, Doris. And I have been able to read the book, although it isn't available, won't be available for a couple more weeks, but I have read the manuscript, and I could feel your passion and your interest in this whole thing. And I will tell you, I've read one of your historical novels, and so that was why I was waiting eagerly to read this one that you had written about the League, because your research is just amazing and very captivating. So thank you. How about Betty? What would you like to tell us as a kind of a closing statement about your experiences with the League, or what impact it's had on your life?
I'll mention two things. One, the League has brought me in 3 different communities that I've lived and worked in, friends whom I still keep in touch with, including one woman whom I served on the League board with back in this small town in western Minnesota in the 1970s. She's now in her 90s, still active in the local League, and I look forward to hearing from her each Christmas with a detailed description of what the League has been doing in this town of 15,000. The other thing is, someone asked me recently, what had I found to do during the last 6 months with the pandemic? And I said, I've been just as busy between learning how Zoom works, continuing to conduct the financial affairs of the League, and pursuing various other interests in the community. So the League has given me a purpose in retirement, and that's wonderful.
Right. Thank you so much, Betty. And Nancy? Nancy, if you'd unmute.
Okay. In this time of hyper-partisanship, it's so wonderful to belong to an organization where I can talk to anyone about what the League is doing, and I don't feel that I'm pushing, one side or the other. I feel comfortable sharing this. There are plenty of people who will do the partisan work, no shortage of those people, but we do the underlying work of protecting our democracy. And I'm always so proud to say that I'm a member of the League.
Yes, thank you. And that's one of the reasons I joined, because it was like there's such a The League has such a wonderful reputation, and it's known to be nonpartisan. And I love our t-shirts. You can see those online at our website. It looks like a Superman symbol on the front. It's LWV, and on the back it says Defender of Democracy. It doesn't have a fist like this, but when I turn around and show the back of my shirt, I'll do this, Defender of Democracy. So if it's ever been needed, and as Harvey has said, we said every election was the most important in our lifetime. We are always working to be a defender of democracy. And Harvey, do you have a closing statement that you would like to share with us?
I just want to echo both Nancy and Dee in saying that I think when we grew up, we were comforted by the fact there was a silent majority, and there were partisan people on one side and partisan people on the other side, but the people in the middle were the ones that needed to be convinced, to be educated. And now, these days, who's left in the middle? Well, the League is in the middle. I call it the center of this country. I think it's really important, factual information, informed voting. I think everybody ought to go out and recruit 5 more people for the League, bring people back to the center, spread the concept of know whom you're voting for, studying the issues, becoming that idealized American voter that we thought we had 50 years ago forever, the people who would study issues and choose the best candidates based on so many factors other than the straight political party. I treasure what the League is doing, and I hope that we all maintain involvement to strengthen that core of the country.
Good, thank you. Thanks, Harvey. Yes, and Doris, you wanted to add? If you would unmute.
I was so proud of myself for a while there. It just before we do leave, I want to acknowledge the collaboration in this project. Yeah, I wrote the words, and I did a lot of research, but people stepped up to the plate. Nancy, Linda Jeffries, we met in March, I think, and just before the pandemic, and all the people, wonderful people that I did interview. The additional we had an outside editor, professional editor, donate his time. We have someone who stepped up at, very close to the nth hour to do our cover for us, and area companies that we interviewed also for the printing. So I didn't want to forget to do that.
Good, thanks so much. I know we've had one question about, okay, I've heard about this book. It sounds really cool. I'd really like to get it. Where are you hiding it? Well, the book is in process of being printed. We thought perhaps it would be ready by this Lunch and Learn. We've got a couple of more weeks, and you have seen the cover, thanks to Andrea Gruber, who is a very new member of the League. One of the things I've noticed about League people is they're very good at networking and getting people who can fit in different areas. Like, we're looking for someone to maybe we could have a nice cover for the book. Here's Andrea Gruber, who joined on August 4th of this year, and here she is, a graphic artist, very interested in the League, very interested in the issues, and she has created quite a wonderful cover of the book. Now, how can you get what's inside the cover of the book as well? That will be available in mid-October. What will happen is, if you are a member of the League, you will receive through an email the link to our website, which lwvannarbor.org, where it will show you where to go to purchase the book. It will be $15. There'll be probably a couple of dollars for postage, or frankly, I'm going to take it upon myself to say I will be happy to deliver those to people if they're in the local area. I will wear my mask. We will meet someplace. We'll set that up by email. But I have had the fortune, I've been fortunate enough to have actually read the manuscript. And it's absolutely amazing. I had no idea that the local league was started in 1920. I think it was 1920. Yeah, it was right about 1920, early 1920s. And somehow I thought it, I guess, started with Nancy because she was the first president I knew of the league. So anyway, so as we make sure that we're all muted right now, then we're going to, what was I going to say? Hang on. If you are not a member and, oh gee, I want to get that book, first of all, I'll say this would be a good time to become a member. You can find that information and you can pay by PayPal right on our website, lwvannarbor.org. And also, we will just keep checking the website. If you haven't heard, by probably the third week in October, but we will get that word out because it's a wonderful, wonderful resource. Betsy, one of our techs, Betsy Nesbitt, are there any other questions that have come in on the chat that we haven't covered yet?
There is one question, and it has to do with sort of the content of the book. And we've heard so many wonderful stories, so I think we know lots about what is in the book, but I wonder if you could give an overview. Maybe Doris could tell us how you would describe the book to someone who would like to learn more.
I would love to. I would love to. As I said, early on, I had history, I had information about the local league, the Ann Arbor Area League, but and then, you know, I realized it had to be about all of the leagues. So what I did is I've organized it by 2 decades at a time, and listed what the National League was doing, what the State League was doing, and what we were doing at that time, and you know, pulled them all together. And so I wrote it as I would have liked to have seen when I first joined, because I knew nothing. And I felt that it would be informative this way. This is an explanation of what the National League is about, what the State League is about, and what we're doing on our own local level. So I think it will be a very good tool for new members to have, in a nutshell version, what this league is all about.
Great, thank you. Betsy, did we have anything else?
No other questions, but there is a thank you to the league for all the work done, and appreciating the publications on candidates' backgrounds and positions on issues. Lots of what you've been saying.
Good, well, that's good to hear. I would like to thank our panel, but you're not done yet, panelists, because we are going to stay on for a little while, if that's possible, if you're okay with that. Because we are asking people to stay on. Others of you who are like, okay, I've had enough. That was good. I've got to get to my lunch or my dessert or whatever. That's fine. But we are going to stay on for a little longer, and we will actually ask people to, if they want to speak, what they want to ask a question, or Lori, who is the niece of Susie Morris, if you wanted to share any other stories about your aunt Sunny, but stick with us. And then it won't be recorded. So if you're streaming live on Facebook, I'm not sure. I think you can just stay on. I do want to personally thank all 5 of you. You're so inspirational to me as a fairly new member. Just whether you're a writer or whether you have just been involved for many, many years. So thank you to Doris Lemcke, author of our book, Nancy Shuey, who's been involved in so many important things in the league, as well as asking Doris if she might like to write a little something for the celebration. And Susie, thank you so much for being the representative of yourself, but also of your mom and her wonderful legacy that she's left. And Betty, thanks to you so much for being so involved for so many years, and for having been seated in front of a Zoom camera for hours now. So, because you had another program earlier, I know. And I'd also like to say, before we sign off, I'd like to say thanks to our fabulous tech team, Shelley Shanfield, Betsy Nesbitt, and Susan Woolley, who is also the Director of Communications for our board. You know, they always, in the Academy Awards and the Emmys and stuff, they always talk about the little people, you know, in the back who aren't in front of the cameras. I got to tell you, those people are doing most of the work. So I had no appreciation until we spent an hour yesterday, well, before that, but yesterday we spent over an hour working out all the kinks of how we were going to have this work today. We did another half hour this morning. It's these things are, they seem technically, oh, that's simple, and they're really not. So hang around with us. I do want to tell you that next month, on Friday, October 23rd, for our lunch and learn from 12, it starts at 12 o'clock. We will have some local clerks from some of the local townships who will be talking about the challenges and opportunities of this election. And also on Friday, November 20th, Al Chambers, who has presented at 2 of our lunch and learns, both of which were sold out because we could only have 30 people at a time, which certainly is one of the advantages of doing Zoom. And I'm sorry, an advantage of the pandemic is that we can have lots more people. So Al is an expert on all the sources of information and news all over the world. I'll let you know that, Harvey. He's always bringing in China because he lived there for many years as a reporter. And his topic is going to be on November 20th, Election 2020. Where are we now? So with that, let me just say, stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you next month.